and the sounds of the forest grew more mysterious, firmly against the wound to stop the bleeding. Her hands trudged through the muddy forest, each step heavier than the last, down on him, but he refused to give in. At last, they reached a hidden village where wooden huts stood and fires. Jackson fought back with everything he had. Believe. At that very moment, the silence of Lily and Jackson's life had always been filled with peace and joy. They lived in a small town in America, where their days were full of laughter, love, and dreams. Jackson was a brave and adventurous young man who always wished to explore new places. Lily was his greatest source of encouragement. Whenever Jackson spoke of a new journey, a sparkle would light up in Lily's eyes as well. One day Jackson said, "Lily, why don't we go see the forest? Away from all the noise. Just you and me." Hearing this, Lily smiled with delight and immediately began preparing for the trip. She packed food, water, blankets, and a first aid box into a bag. Jackson checked the car, filled the fuel tank, and pulled out the map for the route. By noon, the two of them set out toward the forest. Along the way, they laughed together and shared their dreams of the future. The air carried the damp scent of leaves. Birds chirped, and in the distance, the sounds of animals could be heard. Jackson stopped the car at the edge of the forest, took Lily's hand, and smiled. "Ready?" he asked. Lily nodded in agreement. Together, they stepped between the trees, venturing deeper into the forest. They had no idea that this journey was about to become the greatest test of their love and courage. As soon as Lily and Jackson stepped into the forest, they felt both a strange calmness and an underlying fear. The dense trees, the distant calls of birds and animals, and the dampness lingering in the air gave the surroundings an air of mystery. Jackson kept glancing at the map and told Lily, "We won't go too far, just enough to see where we might spend the night." As they walked, the sun slowly began to set. Shadows stretched longer, and an unfamiliar unease settled into the forest silence. After a while, behind the grass and vines, they spotted an old, worn-down house. The structure was crumbling, its windows shattered, but there was still a way inside. They decided to take shelter there before the darkness grew too deep. They leaned against each other, trying to get through the night, but neither of them knew that the real danger was now drawing closer. Together, they began walking deeper into the forest, hoping to find a clear spot. But the farther they went, the heavier the weight of fear pressed on their hearts. Suddenly, a loud grrrr echoed between the trees. Lily's heart skipped a beat as she gripped Jackson's hand tightly. The very next moment, a huge, terrifying lion emerged from the bushes and stood before them. With trembling hands, Lily lifted Jackson and somehow dragged him back inside the old house. His clothes were soaked in blood, and his breathing had grown heavy. Tears began to stream down Lily's face, but she gathered her courage, took out the first aid box, and started bandaging his wounds. A faint light filtered into the old house. Jackson lay on the floor, his arms soaked in blood. Lily tore a piece of her clothing and pressed it firmly against the wound to stop the bleeding. Her hands trembled, but one thought echoed in her heart: "I will not lose Jackson." After a long struggle with bandages, Jackson's breathing finally steadied a little. Weakly, he opened his eyes and looked at Lily. After a moment of silence, Jackson reached out his weak hand toward her. As Lily leaned closer, Jackson softly touched his lips to hers. Outside, the night deepened. The wind howled through the trees, and the sounds of the forest grew more mysterious in the darkness. At last, exhaustion and weakness carried them into sleep. But the coming day held another harsh trial waiting for them. Morning light spread into the old house. Jackson was still weak and asleep, but Lily decided she should look for something to eat. Stepping carefully, she went out into the forest. The air was damp, and raindrops from the night still glistened on the ground. She hadn't gone far when suddenly footsteps sounded behind her. Just as she was about to turn, two strong hands seized her. She screamed, but a cloth was tied tightly over her mouth. From behind the thick trees, several men emerged. They were tall, their bodies draped only in animal skins, their faces painted with colors. Their eyes glimmered with savagery and menace. They dragged Lily deeper into the forest. She struggled and tried to scream, but her voice was muffled. After a while, they reached a hidden village where wooden huts stood and fires burned. More tribesmen were there, watching Lily with a mix of curiosity and grim excitement. They tied her to a broken bench. She fought desperately, but the ropes were too tight. The tribal chief stepped forward and spoke something in a strange language, causing the others to burst into laughter. From their gestures and expressions, it was clear they intended to hurt her. Meanwhile, back in the house, Jackson slowly opened his eyes only to find Lily gone. Panic gripped his heart. Weak and wounded, he forced himself up and staggered into the forest. Only one thought echoed in his mind: I will find Lily, no matter what it takes. Jackson staggered through the dense forest, clutching his wounded arm. With every step, waves of pain surged through his body, yet one fire burned relentlessly in his heart. At last, as dusk settled, he spotted a faint glow of fire in the distance. Creeping closer, he saw the tribesmen dancing wildly around the flames. Lily was tied to a wooden bench, her eyes brimming with tears, her body bound helplessly. Jackson's heart pounded harder. When Lily's eyes met his, a flicker of hope lit within them. Grabbing a heavy branch from the ground, summoning all his strength, Jackson swung the branch down onto the man's head. The tribesman collapsed instantly. The others froze in shock. Jackson rushed toward Lily and desperately worked to untie the ropes. 2 tribesmen lunged at him, and despite his injuries, Jackson fought back with everything he had. Blows and kicks rained down on him, but he refused to give in. At last, the rope snapped and Lily was free. Hand in hand, they sprinted into the jungle. Behind them rose the angry shouts and cries of the tribe, but the night's darkness concealed their escape. Thunder rumbled above, rain poured down, and the 2 of them kept running, drenched but alive. Rain poured down in heavy sheets. Thunder cracked across the sky, and the wind shook the trees violently. Lily and Jackson were in terrible condition. Blood still seeped from Jackson's arm, while Lily shivered uncontrollably from cold and exhaustion. They trudged through the muddy forest, each step heavier than the last, as if their strength would give out at any moment. In a weary voice, Lily said, "Jackson, maybe we won't survive this." Jackson gripped her hand tightly and replied, "No, Lily. As long as I'm alive, nothing will happen to you. We will make it. Just believe." At that very moment, the silence of the forest was broken by the distant roar of a helicopter. Both of them looked up to see its searchlight sweeping across the stormy sky. Drenched in rain, they ran toward an open clearing. Jackson pulled a small flare from his pocket and fired it into the sky. The red light tore through the darkness like a signal of life. The helicopter immediately turned toward them. A rescue team member threw down a rope. Lily went up first, tears and joy mingling on her face. Then, with great effort, they hauled up the injured Jackson. The 2 clung to each other, as if they had just been given back the greatest gift in the world. The helicopter lifted higher, leaving the jungle behind. Lily held Jackson's hand and whispered, "We did it. We survived." Jackson smiled faintly at her and murmured, "Real life begins now with you."